I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
We are going back to two things that we really do love on this podcast. One, the movies of Mel Brooks. And two, good old-fashioned Nazi punching.
Yay!
It's been a few weeks. Last time we talked about some good old-fashioned Nazi punching was The Sound of Music. And it's kind of funny because timeline-wise, while Sound of Music took place in 1938, this movie takes place in 1939. This is the Mel Brooks movie To Be or Not to Be, which I did not know before you told me. This is a remake, a rare Mel Brooks remake.
And one of the few that he's in that he did not write or direct.
So yeah, I mean, this is a movie that is in my blind spot of Mel Brooks, probably because, like you said, he did not direct this movie. He did not write this movie. He didn't produce it. It is a Brooks Films production, and it is considered part of the Mel Brooks collection. You know, usually when they list off of Mel Brooks's movies, this is it because, you know, he's in it. But yeah, I've never really sat down and watched this movie before doing it for this podcast, and I've never understood. It wasn't like I was avoiding the movie or anything. It was just, I guess, as a fan, it was like, oh, he didn't direct it, he didn't write it. I'll watch it when I get around to it. Like just before Christmas, we were talking about what we were going to do for January. And I said, well, we haven't done a Mel Brooks movie in a while. What Mel Brooks films follow our little rules of Disney-owned media? And he did quite a number of movies for Fox. So I sent the list to Kiki of what we haven't done yet. And like, To Be or Not to Be. And we can post it on January 20th for no reason whatsoever.
Not a single reason we chose that date. This is also one of the rare ones in that it is Mel Brooks starring alongside his wife, Anne Bancroft.
Yep. They've only done 3 movies together. Despite both being Hollywood legends, they've only done 3 movies together. This movie, silent movie, and Dracula Dead and Loving It, which Bancroft has a cameo in as the Romani woman.
Well, she also had a uncredited cameo in Blazing Saddles. So she's technically in that, but she's really just an extra.
This is really a family affair because their son, Max Brooks, is also in the movie. He plays a little Jewish boy.
There's an interesting story that I don't know if I've told before when we talked about Mel Brooks, but one of my friends who I've done community theater with was an actor in New York before he moved to where I lived and has done some, bit parts in movies and things like that. Probably around the time this movie was made, to be honest, was in New York and was at a party and ended up that Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft were there, and he was talking to Mel Brooks, and he gave Mel Brooks a compliment about, like, yeah, man, but, you're a star or whatever. And Mel Brooks pointed over to Anne Bancroft and he said, no, she's a star. I'm just the lucky sap who married her.
Wife guy. I like it.
Wife guy, yeah. So that's always been kind of one of my favorite stories about Mel Brooks, and it's just like a personal story from a guy I know.
And Brooks never remarried after Anne Bancroft passed away.
Yeah. They seemed, from all accounts, to have been a pretty well matched couple. And they do really well together in this movie as far as playing off of each other.
Mm-hmm. I wish that they had done more stuff together. Because, yeah, they have, I mean, yes, obviously they're married, but they have such on-screen chemistry. I mean, we have seen real-life couples on screen that have zero chemistry in terms of acting. But
yeah, you can be a good, well-matched married couple and be good actors and also have zero on-screen chemistry together. You know, it's what makes on-screen chemistry is a very kind of picky thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you might make a good couple in real life, and just because you both might be talented, doesn't always mean that you're going to be a good match on screen together. Which a lot of people don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But they did make a good on-screen pairing, and you're right, it is kind of sad that they did not work together more in this capacity.
But it's also, Brooks didn't have a lot of, after this, he didn't really have much of leading man roles. And I understand why this movie bombed hard. It really did. So I can see Hollywood like, oh, we like Mel Brooks directing. Well, maybe he shouldn't be in the lead.
Well, there are some things where Mel Brooks can be in the lead, but not necessarily in the idea of the quote unquote leading man. You know? In the original movie, the guy that he's kind of playing, they mixed a couple of characters together from the original movie to make the one Mel Brooks is playing here. But basically, the character he's playing was originally played by Jack Benny. So if you want that comparison, that's who he's taking over for.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. And like I said, it's not like Mel Brooks wasn't in the lead in a movie. Like I said, silent movie, high anxiety.
And if you're going to have Mel Brooks in a lead role, this is kind of the lead role he should be in. He is playing a ham actor. And that is kind of Mel Brooks's niche. So it's not that he was miscast, in my opinion. You mentioned how bad this movie bombed, and I'm going to point out that I think it comes down to timing. The original film came out in 1942.
Same plot, so it's right after the U.S. enters World War II.
The original movie was like the most timely of timely World War II movies. Okay, like you said, this movie takes place in 1939. This is just when Germany invades Poland. That is what we're dealing with in this movie. The original movie comes out in 1942. The U.S. is in the war. The Mel Brooks version comes out in 1983. I'm not saying that movies about Nazi punching can't work good in the 80s, because there were a lot of them.
Indiana Jones.
We've talked about a lot of them. Indiana Jones, and then, in the early 90s, we talked about The Rocketeer, and there's lots of, we've talked about how we grew up in this time with movie upon movie upon movie about, hey, Nazis are the bad guys, let's defeat the Nazis. I'm going to suggest that maybe the timing had something to do with it. Because while I will say, and I will get into this a little bit, but having seen both versions of this movie, the original version of this movie is part of the Criterion Collection, and I believe it is in the National Film Registry for the Library of Congress. The Mel Brooks version is neither of those things.
To watch this movie, we had to dig. We went. We kind of mentioned this at the end of the last episode. This is not on Disney Plus. This is not streaming anywhere. We had to dig into. So where we ended up going. Thank you, Shout Factory. Thank you, Shout Factory, for putting this on streaming. Unfortunately, Shout Factory has an app. This movie isn't on it, but it is on Amazon Prime if you subscribe to the Shout Factory app. So if you get the Shout TV app through Amazon Prime, you can watch this and a bunch of other Shout Factory products like MST3K and a bunch of the old Godzilla movies and Super Sentai stuff, old TV shows. Shout Factory just kind of deals with niche entertainment. And this would be niche entertainment. You're really only searching this movie out if you're a Mel Brooks completionist.
Yeah. We're not sponsored. We just believe in the product. The thing is that, I've seen both versions. You have only seen the Mel Brooks version. Mm-hmm. I will say that, in my opinion, the original is better. I love Mel Brooks. We've discussed this. I love his work. But I do think that the original film flows a lot better. This film takes a lot from the original film, down to a lot of lines that are just verbatim ported over. We talked about off mic the fact that you had noticed, one of Mel Brooks' jokes originated in this film, and I had to point out to you that it did not originate in this film. It originated in the original version of To Be or Not to Be, which is that there is the joke that they are doing a satirical Hitler play, this theater company that they are in Poland before the Nazis invade. And they are making fun of Hitler and the Nazis, like you do and should do constantly. They come in and they do the whole, all the Nazis are Heil Hitler, and Hitler walks in and goes, Heil myself. Now, if you've seen the producer's musical, you know that there's an entire song that Hitler sings in the play that's, Heil myself, Heil to me, all that kind of stuff. And you had mentioned that, it's interesting that that joke originated in this movie. And I had to point out to you that it originated in the original To Be or Not to Be in 1942, because they used that same joke in that same context, that they're doing the play, and all the Nazis do the Heil Hitler, and Hitler comes in and goes, Heil myself. And that was ported over into this film, and then Mel Brooks ported it over into the musical version of The Producers.
There's a lot of jokes that are from this movie that get ported over into the musical version of The Producers. Like, you never say good luck to an actor. You say break a leg. Well, break a leg. Boom, boom, boom. I broke my leg.
Yeah, and that one did start in this film. That one is not, to my memory, I don't remember it being in the original film. So I think that one starts here. But like I said, so many of the jokes here are ported over, sometimes word for word.
It kind of reminds me, and I kind of mentioned this to you, and you kind of said, well, I'm not sure, is the movie Airplane. And the movie Airplane is a direct remake of a movie called 0 Hour. And it's almost a scene for scene, in some cases line for line remake of that movie. The only difference is that 0 Hour was not a comedy.
Yeah, I mean, both To Be or Not To Be versions are comedies. I mean, the difference is that the original To Be or Not To Be is much more a dark comedy. The Mel Brooks version is more slapsticky because that's Mel Brooks's oeuvre, you know? But the original version is much more, well, it was the 40s, and it's that kind of quick-witted, dialogue-heavy. So while there are a few, like, slapsticky moments, it's much more like a Nick and Nora Charles kind of movie, in the fact that it's very much dialogue heavy and dependent on the quick-witted delivery of the lines and the back and forth dialogue between the characters. The Mel Brooks version is much more broad in its comedy. So while a lot of the lines are the same, the delivery is a little bit slower, and it depends a lot more on physical comedy and visual gags. Whereas the original movie depended more on, I don't really mean like intellectual humor, but it's more that quick, witty, bon mot kind of version, you know?
I would say, now, of my knowledge of the original movie, I did quickly read through some stuff. One thing that this movie does add is one of the characters is gay. And it was done specifically to show that it wasn't just Jewish people that were sent to camps in World War II. It was also gay people, among others. So
Yeah.
to have one of the characters be gay and have a plot point be towards the end of the movie where this gay man is running for his life, please hide me, they're coming for me.
Well, remember that in 1942, you're still dealing with the Hays Code.
Mm.
And also, I don't know how much they knew in 1942 about the persecution of homosexuals in the camps.
Mm.
A lot of what was going on in the camps did not get back to Americans for a while during the war.
And honestly, a lot of, I mean, let's be real, a lot of those movies of the era that dealt with this topic was largely propaganda films. is the original 1940s version a propaganda film? Maybe.
Well, I mean, it could be considered that, but remember that the word propaganda is not necessarily a bad word in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
It just in its original meaning means, something put out to sway to a particular side,
Mm-hmm.
So it can be used for good purposes or bad purposes. So, this movie was like, hey, Hitler sucks, which, Hitler did suck. Nazis will always suck, like, if that's your propaganda message, I'm for that. But remember, in the 80s, we're already into...
This is Cold War era, so it's Russians, not Nazis.
Well, I mean that, but I was going to specifically address the, gay rights movement had already started, and we're, 83, we're just on the cusp of the AIDS crisis really becoming a major thing. They're more free at that point to talk about that, and I'm glad they added that. Mel Brooks' character does make the point in this when they're running afoul of the Gestapo. The theater company he runs is running afoul of the Gestapo. The Gestapo is targeting the Jews and the gays and the Romani people, and he points out that without those three groups, you really have no theater. Like that's the basis of theater in Poland,
I mean, you could say that basis of theater in around the world. I mean,
in a lot of places, yes, but specifically in Poland at that time, yes.
mm-hmm.
He's talking about how this is a direct attack on the arts in that sense. It is an interesting plot line. I mean, the plot line to this movie basically follows the plot line of the original film, which is that the Mel Brooks character runs a theater in Warsaw, and he is the star, along with his wife, played by Anne Bancroft here, and they are the big stars, the big draws. But Mel Brooks' character is a ham. He's not a very good actor. She is the better actor, but he constantly steals the show from her, and it causes some tension in their marriage.
Yeah, I mean, she's getting flowers every night and he's getting nothing.
Yeah. The thing they change from the original film for comedy in this one is, in the original film, they are just performing straight up Hamlet. And in this version, to make the Mel Brooks character seem more ridiculous and hammy, he does his world famous in Poland highlights from Hamlet. So the plot really kicks off when Anne Bancroft keeps getting flowers from an admirer that comes to see her perform every night. And she says, hey, I don't really have anything to do during this highlights from Hamlet bit. So when my husband starts his to be or not to be speech, why don't you get up and come back to my dressing room and we'll talk. And so they have a little flirtation, and it's not really going anywhere. She's just toying with him because she wants the praise, but he thinks they're having like an affair. He thinks they're desperately in love and she's going to leave her husband and be with him. And we come to find out, he is a bomber pilot in the Polish Air Force.
Tim Matheson as Lieutenant Zabensky.
In the original movie, he is played by Robert Stack. And yes, that Robert Stack.
Unsolved Mysteries, Robert Stack.
Yeah, Unsolved Mysteries, Robert Stack, as a very young and very attractive man. I mean, he had to be like in his like early 20s maybe at that point.
Yeah. And it's really just honestly to kind of make her husband jealous. She's Mel Brooks' character kind of has a big head about himself, and she kind of wants to keep him in check. So yeah, I'll just invite my admirer backstage, and we'll have a conversation. And nothing is intended to happen, even though her gay friend is saying, yeah, you should sleep with him.
Yeah, but the thing is she's not really doing it to make her husband jealous because she doesn't want her husband to know. She just wants somebody to fawn over her.
Yeah, she just wants some attention. She wants someone to tell her that she's pretty, and because her husband's kind of letting the business side of show business get in the way of their marriage. Because he's even like, there's a scene earlier in the movie where the actors are listening to the radio to Hitler's speech, and he's telling them to turn it off to keep politics out of the theater. He's talking about, we got to do this show and we got to do this, and he talks about the poster for the next show and how his name has to be bigger than his wife's name. His wife's name's in parentheses at the bottom of the poster.
Yeah, a joke which they carry on in the film poster and in the credits to the film when Anne Bancroft's name is in parentheses.
I will say that I give the movie some credit for having like the first 10 minutes of this movie being Polish. Like they're singing Sweet Georgia Brown in Polish. I don't know if this is actual Polish or because this is still the 1980s. Even by that point, non-English languages are still represented by gibberish. So I don't know if this is actual.
It is Polish. Yeah. Okay.
And at curtain call, they have this big argument over them stepping over each other, trying to get more attention. And again, how she gets flowers every night, he gets nothing. And they're doing this in Polish to each other. And then the narrator of the movie goes, for the sake of clarity and sanity, the rest of this movie will be in English. It's very much stage production. Like if you were watching this produced on the stage. Again, coming to the, kind of spoiling the end of the movie there, where the end credits are a literal stage curtain call. It's as if we are watching this as a stage production and less than a movie.
Yeah.
Though I wonder how much balls they would have had to do the whole movie in Polish.
Probably not a lot. I mean, it bombed enough in English. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. The names that are in this movie, I mentioned, we mentioned Mel Brooks, we mentioned Ing Bancroft, Tim Matheson. Christopher Lloyd is in this movie playing a Nazi soldier, and it's like he is so good in this quivering. It's so unlike other roles I'm used to him in, to play this quivering, cowardly soldier just constantly afraid of his superior officer's anger. Who told you to do this? You did, sir. Are you passing the blame on to me? No, sir. No, Heil Hitler. And this runs off. Which, of what little I've seen of the 40s movie, is a joke from that movie. There are not a lot of what we would consider the Mel Brooks usuals in this movie. We're not getting like Madeline Kahn or anything in this movie. But we would get actors that would become standards in Mel Brooks' movie. Like George Weiner plays another one of the actors, would go on right after this to play Colonel Sanders in Spaceballs.
Yeah.
One more I'll throw in there is George Gaines, who is another one of the actors who, right after this, would play Commandant Lassard in the first Police Academy movie. Not sure which one would be the lower point, but, Police Academy actually made money.
Yeah, I'll mention one. We do have Estelle Reiner in here.
Mm-hmm.
She's I mean, not only, is she an actress in her own right, but you may recognize the Reiner name. She was married to Carl Reiner, and she is the mother of Rob Reiner. So, I mean, this movie is full of, oh, hey,
Yeah, a lot of the cast is, hey, that guy.
Yeah. I mean, Charles Durning is Earhart. And, I mean, I had totally forgotten Christopher Lloyd was in this movie because it's been so long since I've seen it. So when he showed up, I was like, oh, yeah, right. He's in this.
I mean, it's both versions having more or less the same kind of a message of, here are these actors and they want to produce their show. Yes, part of their show is a satire on Hitler and the Nazi Party. And the government is literally coming in and saying, you cannot do this show. If you do this show making fun of the leader of the Third Reich, they could see it as a threat and then attack us. And as the invasion of Poland continues, Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft's character are losing more and more and more. They lose their theater. They lose their home, which has now become the Gestapo headquarters. So they're forced to live in a small apartment with Anne Bancroft's character's friend. Obviously, the lieutenant has to go to war in England, and it's weird in that, clearly Mel Brooks' character, Frederick, that's his name, Frederick Bronsky, he tries to have this brave face, but he's a coward, which works for a Mel Brooks character, especially when he is face to face with the supposed person, when he's confronted with the person that he thinks is having an affair with his wife. And he's like, you know what, I should kill you where you stand, I'm going to go save her. You shouldn't go save her. I'm going to go save her. I'm her husband. I say that line.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of treats everything as if it was a performance. But the thing is that, the film it starts off like very slapsticky, and then we get the invasion of Poland, and we see what happens to these people. And the thing is that Mel Brooks, his character is not supposed to be, the Bronskys are supposed to be quote unquote Aryan Polish people. They are not supposed to be of Jewish ancestry. They're not, as far as Polish people under Nazi rule, they are supposed to be kind of highest up on the food chain. But we see that even they are losing everything, They're not necessarily being carted away to camps like the more marginalized people are, but we see how this is not, fascism is not good for anyone, and their house is taken from them, like you said, and turned into the headquarters of the Gestapo. Their theater is constantly being censored and under threat of being shut down. The interesting thing is they have a basement, kind of a hidden basement room in the bottom of the theater, and they're using it to hide mostly Jews.
Yeah. We have the seamstress literally says, "Hey, can I at least hide my family?" Well, first it's like, was it her sister or something?
Yeah, someone she knew.
Yeah, can she just hide in the theater basement? No one will see her. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's one person, fine. And then it's her husband and her son. And then by the end of the movie, there's this whole group of Jewish refugees hiding in the basement of the theater. And the seamstress herself is Jewish. She has the a Star of David on her.
When the Bronskys have their house taken from them, just because they have a nice house and the Gestapo wants it, no other real reason. They haven't done anything quote unquote wrong. They just have a nice house in a central area, and the Gestapo goes, "Oh, that'd make a good place to set up shop," And so they, like you said, they have to move in with Sasha, who's her dresser and is gay. And we see that he has to wear the pink triangle and all that. And so it's like the three of them in his like tiny 1-bedroom apartment or whatever.
We're living in a rat hole.
Yeah, and Frederick is like so mean about it. Like you said, the pilot that is so in love with Anna is has to flee to England to join kind of the Ally resistance. Excuse me. And there is a man there who has Seletsky is his name, who has been doing a Radio Free Poland broadcast, and he tells all the pilots there, all the Polish pilots, that hey, I'm going to sneak back into Warsaw to meet up with the Polish underground and, give them messages and stuff. So if you have anybody back in Warsaw that you want me to give messages to, So the pilot says, yes, I need you to deliver a message to Anna Bronsky. And Seletsky says, what's her name again? And the pilot gets really sus, because he's like, hey, didn't you say you lived in Warsaw? She's like the most famous actress in Warsaw. Literally everybody knows her. So he goes to British intelligence and he's like, hey, something's weird about this guy. I mentioned the name of the most famous actress in Warsaw and he had no idea who she was. There's no way you can live in Warsaw and not know this woman.
And we kind of had a conversation about that off mic. Like, what would be the modern equivalent of that? Like, someone that is famous solely in one country, that there's no way you would not know who this person is, but also not famous enough to be known outside of that home country.
You know how every town has some local celebrity that if you live in that town, you know that of that person, but people who don't live in that town don't,
Or when we were growing up, there's those local commercials that if you live in that town, you know that commercial by heart because you've lived there, you've watched it on TV your entire life. But when you mention it to someone else, I have no idea what that is.
Don't stop sucking on Menards. Yeah.
588-2300 Empire.
Yeah, it's where I live, we had Bubba the Used Car Ninja or something like that. Who sold used cars but was also a redneck ninja. He was just this big guy in a really bad ninja costume who would slice prices on the cars. And he was like Bubba the Used Car Ninja or something like that.
But yeah, if you're in that town, you're gonna know that guy. You're gonna know that particular, you're gonna know that dealership. You're gonna know that commercial. You're gonna know that guy. But outside, they're gonna have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. So if you claimed to be from my town and I mentioned that, and you're like, what? And then I'm like, oh, you're not from my town, and so, yeah, that's kind of what he's going. He's like, you literally cannot have lived in Warsaw and not know this woman's name. And so that's what tips him off that there's something sus about this guy. And so he goes to British intelligence and he's like, hey, he told us he was going to Warsaw. And they're like, wait, he told you he was going to Warsaw? Why? And he's like, oh, he wanted to know if we had any messages to pass on to our friends. And they're like, oh crap, he is going to deliver all the names of your friends and relatives to the Gestapo. He is obviously a Nazi. And so the pilot is like, hey, can you get me, that guy's going by train and stuff to sneak back into Poland. Can you maybe airdrop me into Warsaw so I can get there before him, and I'll make contact with the underground and tip them off that this guy is a traitor.
And he's also trying to get that list.
Yeah, he wants that list of like people in the underground so that they can like burn it or whatever. And so he ends up going there and making contact with the Bronskis and tipping them off, and there's a lot of like kind of twists and turns, but of course it ends up that like these people are all actors, and Mel Brooks looks enough like the Nazi sympathizer guy that he can end up pretending to be that guy and trying to fool the Nazis.
Also, the Nazi sympathizer has never met anyone in the Gestapo. So Mel Brooks' character also is portraying a German Gestapo agent to try to get the list out of his hands.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of like, let's use our skills at acting and costuming and all that to trick all these Nazis and Nazi sympathizers and whatever to try to save the Polish underground and keep their names,
Also, Zelensky has Anna and Bancroft's character arrested or taken to the Gestapo because he misunderstands the message that the lieutenant is sending her. He thinks it's code for some sort of secret mission or something, and he has to like tell her, no. I'm an actor. He's my admirer. And every time my husband does Hamlet during this, when he hears to be or not to be, that's his signal to come backstage and we can fool around.
Yeah, she's just being honest.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really believe her.
The entire second act of the movie is this Zelensky plot where the actors are disguising the theater as the Gestapo headquarters. Mel Brooks is playing the Gestapo head that has, they never met, so they're gonna try to trick him, get the list, destroy it, and then he'll pose as Zelensky to try to get more information from the Gestapo. Because if that lieutenant walks in there, he even says, if you go in there guns blazing, they'll shoot you before you get past the first officer. But Frederick messes up. Because branding can be a very good thing, but branding can also bite you in the butt. As he turns his chair around and it says Bronsky Theater Company on the back of the chair, tipping off Zelensky, okay, I'm not in the Gestapo. I'm in a theater. These are actors. I'm going to bring up this actress and kind of twist a knife on him. Oh, yeah, have you heard about this actress, Anna Bronsky? I heard she's sleeping around on her husband and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that makes Mel Brooks' character kind of lose his... Yeah.
I mean, I don't blame the character if a dude came in here and said, yeah, your wife's a two-timer. I could say more cruel words, but this is a PG podcast. But Zelensky escapes into the theater. All the actors are chasing after him. Lieutenant's chasing after him. They end up on the stage. They go behind the curtain and they hear shots. And when the curtain opens, Zelensky falls down dead. That's one problem taken care of.
And nothing of value was lost.
Yeah. And like you said, since Mel Brooks' character has a passing resemblance to Zelensky, he disguises himself as Zelensky. He puts on a fake beard. He puts on a similar-looking suit. And he goes to the Gestapo to try to get his wife back. That's literally what he's there for. But he also hears that Zelensky says, I have 2 copies of the list of the underground, one on me and one to deliver to the Gestapo and one in my private quarters that I am going to hand deliver to the Fuhrer. So you have to go to Zelensky's hotel where he's at, get into his suitcase, destroy the second copy of the list. But here comes the real Gestapo. That's everything goes in the wrong direction as the real Gestapo shows up to get the fake Zelensky to meet the real Gestapo in the list and all that. The 2 scenes between the real Zelensky and the fake soldier, Nazi soldier, and the fake Zelensky and the real Nazi soldier, I do appreciate the mirroring of the scene in that regard, of same nicknames, in some cases the same jokes. Well, Mel Brooks essentially playing both ends of the conversation twice. Mel Brooks plays so well of a character that is scared for his life, but also knows that he has to play this role perfectly to convince the Gestapo who he is, that he is who he says he is. Though he doesn't get shot, but it works. He gets out of there, without a scratch. He's able to use his influence as the fake Zelensky to tell the clerk at the desk, hey, let Mrs. Blonsky go if she wants to go. I will see her tomorrow. And I love that scene right at the end here, the end of Act 2, I guess you can call it, where Mel Brooks comes back after being at the Gestapo. He goes into the apartment. He's taking off the fake beard and the fake costume, and he's just going, I did it. I gave the performance of my life, and no one saw it.
Yeah.
It is probably some of the most brilliant acting Mel Brooks ever did. And the movie bombed. And like I said, I wish this movie did better because it is probably some of the best acting Mel Brooks has ever done. And we get to the I guess Act 3 here starting, and that is where Sasha gets taken away to the camps.
Mel Brooks' character has to use his disguise as Zelensky to try to get Sasha back. And the thing is that the Nazis have discovered the real Zelensky's body by this point. And as Mel Brooks' character arrives at the Gestapo headquarters to try to, pull off more of his, I'm Zelensky, do what I say, they put Zelensky's dead body in the room with Mel Brooks and leave him with there. And in a kind of really impressive move, Mel Brooks had brought a second fake beard with him because the one he was wearing was kind of falling off. And he was like, I'll bring a second one just in case I need it. And quickly, as he's left alone with the body, he shaves the beard off of the corpse and then applies a fake beard. And then he convinces the Nazi commander to pull off the fake beard off the corpse, and then he's like, look, that guy was an imposter. He's wearing a fake beard. He was trying to convince you he was actually me, and it works, and he's able to get Sasha out of the camp.
Yeah, and it's a great scene. Also, as they, again, because Sasha was arrested in the theater, they're trying to hide him by disguising him as one of the dancing girls in Mel Brooks's number. The theater is shut down, but the Nazi commander comes in, not arrest, but he kind of summons Anne Bancroft's character to the Gestapo, saying, "Hey, you're a theater group. We're going to reopen your theater for one night because Hitler is coming in for a surprise visit, and we want to entertain him. So you're going to do a special show just for the Fuhrer." And that is the plan, is that they're going to use this show to try to escape out of Poland. So they set up,
with all the Jews that they've been hiding in the basement and everybody else.
Yeah, there's a great scene there where where did we get all these people? How can we take them? And then Anne Bancroft looks at him and says, "How can we leave them?" And we'll figure something out. We'll get him. I want to backtrack before we get going because there's a second, what I call one of Mel Brooks' best acting moments. It's right before he goes to get Sasha. He looks at the soldier and he says, "If I don't make it back, I want to say I forgive you for falling in love with my wife. It's easy." And you can tell that's not him acting. That's him just being Mel Brooks' wife guy.
Yeah, probably.
Like, I don't blame you for falling in love with my wife. It's easy to fall in love with her. Like I said, it's one of Mel Brooks' greatest acting moments, and it's too bad this movie bombed so hard as it did, that so few people will ever see that scene. But here we are, the big performance, the big finale, as it were, of the film. The
thing is that I do want to address one thing. There is a moment that is in both films, and it's a great moment in both. There's an actor in the company, and his dream is to play Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. And it's kind of it's a running thing of, why do we always have to do Hamlet? Why can't we do Merchant of Venice? I would make a great Shylock. And
the comedy actor gets to do Hamlet. Meanwhile, the serious actor is stuck doing comedy.
Yeah, and he talks about the fact that all he gets to do is carry a spear. This is much more talked about. This is much more talked about in the original film, but it carries through in this version. But in order to buy some time, at one point, this actor confronts Hitler as he's coming into the theater. And he ends up identifying himself as a Jew. When the Nazis around and Hitler expresses disgust, he launches into Shylock's famous speech. And it is the great, if you prick us, do we not bleed? And if you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, do we not revenge?
He does it very well in this movie.
Oh yeah, no, it's one of the best scenes in the movie. It does so well, and like I said, that there is, an almost identical scene in the original. It is such an amazing moment of just standing there in front, a Jew confronting Hitler.
I mean, granted, by this point, Mel Brooks has switched places with Hitler, so it's Mel Brooks is fake Hitler.
Well, yeah, but it is the point of the thing,
Yeah.
Of that idea of using one of the greatest speeches ever written by one of the greatest writers in the English language in order to be a plea for compassion.
What do you want from the viewer? What does he want from us?
Yeah.
What more do you want that you haven't already taken? And the to backtrack a bit, part of the plan is, we're going to disguise the Jewish refugees as clowns, have them go out there and do the clown routine. And meanwhile, we're going to have Mel Brooks' character as the fake Hitler walk around the hallway, and like I said, the one actor as a Jew doing the speech. He gets arrested, and then they take him out. And during that scene with the clowns, she has one freaking line in the whole movie. It's in Yiddish. This actress playing this old Jewish woman, and most of her acting is facial. It's like she has one line, and it's like it steals the movie for me. Because she's this old Jewish woman in a room full of Nazis, and she's scared for her life. And she plays that role so well. Now, granted, the other clowns have to kind of backtrack and play up a gag to kind of get her to keep moving before she blows their cover. But for the rest of the movie, they have her kind of have these one-off close-up shots of her scared out of her mind, especially towards the end where they're trying to get onto Hitler's plane, and she's a Jewish woman in a Nazi camp, scared for her life, and again, all of her acting is facial, and she just does such a damn good job for it. For one line and all facial acting, she does a damn good job, and she steals the movie for me.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It is one of the most amazing scenes. And then there is another one of the actors that is trying to salvage because the Nazis in the audience are starting to get suspicious. Like, why is this clown crying? And also, is that Yiddish? Like, And one of the other actors comes up and sticks
a very comically
large Star of David patches on the woman, and then a man who I assume is like a relative of hers.
It's credited as her husband.
Oh, okay. Well, the woman and her husband who is trying to comfort her and get her to like keep going, get out the door. And he sticks these like comically large Star of David patches on their chests and screams, you know, Juden, Juden. And the Nazis kind of look, and then he pulls out like a pop gun and shoots it, and a swastika flag falls down. And then he kind of makes a show of, like, quote unquote, arresting them. And the Nazis laugh, and he's able to get them out of the theater, like, oh, it was all part of the act. Ha ha. And honestly, it was a good save on the part of that guy.
Yeah, it's a great moment in that movie. The plan goes off well. They successfully hijack Hitler's caravan. They're on the way to steal Hitler's plane to get out of Poland. But the Nazi soldier has returned because in his mind, the actress has had a flirtatious relationship with this Polish soldier. She had some sort of relationship with Zelensky. Now Zelensky is dead. I'm going to ease on in and she can have a little relationship with me. So she's saying, no, I can't mess around with you. I have a date. I have a very important person, very, very important person that's coming to pick me up for our date. You don't wanna upset this person. And when the caravan pulls up to the theater, to the other side of the theater where she's supposed to be waiting for them, she's not there. Okay, she's supposed to be out here. She's not. What's the hold up? The Polish soldier lieutenant says, "Oh, I'll go get her." No. She's my wife. I'm going to go get her while he's still dressed as Hitler. Which leads to a really great, funny moment that, he comes to her dressing room. He says, "Honey, are you here?" And yes, right as he's trying, right as the Nazi soldier is trying to or the head of the Gestapo is trying to kind of make the moves on her. Oh crap! Your date is Hitler.
Yeah, that is a funny moment because he's like, Heil, Heil, and then like Anne Bancroft is like, Hitler.
I told you I had a big date coming. Big. Oh, I know who you are. You're the one that said that joke about me, aren't you? No. And I love how that's the payoff of this gag from earlier in the movie, where he tells the fake, Mel Brooks as the fake professor, hey, there's this joke going around about Hitler, and which apparently is from the original film. They made drinks about other leaders, and when they make something for Hitler, it's going to be a pickle because he's a sourpuss. You shouldn't joke about the Fuhrer like that. What if I'm meeting the Fuhrer? What if I told him you told that joke? And then, of course, the payoff is, aren't you the one that told the joke about me being a pickle? Again, you have to watch the movie for all of that to make sense, but they finally make it to the airport to get on Hitler's plane, and one of the Jewish refugees falls. They're all disguised as Nazi soldiers. Unfortunately, they did not have any time to take off any of their costumes, so the Jewish refugees are still dressed as clowns underneath their jackets and helmets. So when one of the Jewish people stumbles, drops his helmet, they're noticing, oh, why is there a clown in a uniform? That's not Hitler. Shoot. So they have to run onto the plane and get out of there. And as you were texting me during the watch, Anne Bancroft's dog gets loose, and they don't have time to go back. They have to leave the dog, and But the dog lives. The dog lives. The dog is being chased by the guard dogs of the Nazi base, and yay, the dog lives.
Yeah, it is a tense moment as this tiny little purse dog is running after a plane getting ready to take off. And
It's
they're
probably
like, run, baby, run, Like,
I mean, it's a pastiche of the typical kind of scene of a person running to try to get on a plane. Only in this scene, it's a dog.
and a tiny little purse dog, too.
Yeah. And they're able to get the plane up and running, and they're able to get out, but the gunfire from the Nazi soldiers shot the compass, which means they don't know where they're going. They might be in England, they might not. They don't know. They end up having to land due to low fuel. And Mel Brooks' character says, well, I'll go and look around just in case we're still in any kind of German-occupied territory, so I can pass as Hitler. And ends up walking into an English bar full of English patrons. So yeah, here's freaking a guy dressed as Hitler walking into an English pub. Are we in England? I mean, imagine, it's the start of World War II. You're a bunch of British soldiers just having a few beers before you get off, and then there's this guy dressed as Hitler.
Oh, well. So the thing is that they are, in fact, of course, as you said, in England. And the British government takes them all in and gives the Bronskys a slot to perform in a theater in London. And we see Frederick start his to be or not to be speech, and then we hear somebody in the audience go, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me. And
yeah, Frederick looks right at the lieutenant who's been flirting with his wife the whole movie, and he's shaking his head, nope, it's not me.
Yep, somebody else.
Some British soldier has gone backstage to, yeah.
Well, we don't even know. He could just be like, off to visit the lavatory,
Yeah.
But that's where we end the movie, and the movie does have a cute little ending credits scene where they do the entire ending credits as a curtain call for the actors, which is a nice touch.
I liked it. Again, it gives the effect of what we have seen was a stage play. I liked it. And like you said, the movie ends with Anne Bancroft's name in parentheses next to Mel Brooks. And I do like how Anne Bancroft looks down, looks at Mel, is like, really? Really?
And then he kind of waves his hands, and then her name appears, just as big as his without the parentheses.
The movie is fine. Like I said, is this one of Mel Brooks' best movies? No. I'm going to be honest. This is not one of Mel Brooks' best movies. I would not even put it top 5. I wouldn't.
I mean, if we're gonna do the big question of does this have the magic, I'm gonna say yes. Everybody should see this.
I agree. It does have the magic. However, go ahead.
However, yeah, I would suggest that you also watch the original film this is based on. I do think that one is a better film. I think it's a more well-made film. There is a reason why that one is included both in the Criterion Collection and the National Film Registry for the Library of Congress.
And it is considered, the original is considered one of the greatest comedy movies of all time. And yeah. It's on Max. If you're curious about the original 1940s version of To Be or Not to Be, it is on Max if you have that service.
So yeah, that one was originally done by United Artists. So that one is not owned by Disney. But yeah, go over to Max and watch that. We do a Disney podcast, but we are not stands for a corporation. The thing is that I do like this movie. This is a decently done movie. I do think it deserves a better reputation than it has. I do think that more people should see it. I do think that it is still a movie with worth, and I am for any movie that advocates for Nazi punching,
Agreed.
as we know.
Yep.
But it does lose something in the comparison. I think it struggles because it was trying to be a Mel Brooks movie without having been written by Mel Brooks.
I agree on that. It's trying to emulate Brooks's style, and it doesn't do a good job. Mel Brooks tries what he can. It's like I said, this is a good movie. This deserves to be seen by as many people as it can. It didn't deserve to be a box office bomb. Like you said, it was just bad timing. This movie was released. But it tries to emulate Mel Brooks' style, and it doesn't do a good job at it. It's still a funny movie. It's still a funny movie, but it's not up to the Brooks standard, I guess you would say. Like I said, it's not in my top 5 Mel Brooks movies of all time, but it's still a funny movie.
The thing is, though, is that as weird as it is, the people who wrote this film also wrote other Mel Brooks films with Mel Brooks. So it's not like they were unfamiliar with the Mel Brooks style. So I don't really know what happened here. I mean, Thomas Mann wrote the producers, the book for the producers musical, and the book for Young Frankenstein the musical, and he co-wrote Spaceballs along with Ronnie Graham, who also wrote this film, and Ronnie Graham only worked, as far as I know, he only worked as a writer on this and Spaceballs, but he worked with Mel Brooks in some of Mel Brooks's other movies. So it wasn't like he was unfamiliar with Mel Brooks's style. So I don't really know what happened.
The director of this movie is Alan Johnson, who has worked with Mel Brooks on many of his films. He was the choreographer director on the Springtime for Hitler number and The Producers, for the Spanish Inquisition number in History of the World Part 1, and the Putting on the Ritz number for Young Frankenstein. This is the only one of Brooks's films that he fully directed. So I think that, he knows how to choreograph a song and dance number, but I don't know if he really could emulate Brooks's directing style. He tries to, and it doesn't really work. Like, he's only directed 2 movies. This movie and a movie called Solar Babies.
Which was a Brooks Films movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to seem like I'm being too harsh on this movie, because this is a good and worthy movie.
Yes.
I want people to understand that. I am suggesting that if you have not seen this movie, go watch this movie. It is a good movie that deserves better than it got. But when you compare it to other Mel Brooks movies, it does suffer in the comparison, and I'm not sure why that is.
I don't know. Maybe it's missing something, but I don't know what that something is, you know?
Yeah, it is hard to put your finger on it because it is a very close remake to the original, which is a classic. And it does have some of that Mel Brooks magic. And Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft are just wonderful together. The cast is amazing. It's got Nazi punching. I mean, what more do you want from a movie? And yet, something is just missing in the final mix that you want a little bit extra, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's like it has all of the ingredients to be one of Mel Brooks's classics. And the sum of the parts don't exactly add up to the whole, you know?
Yeah. But there is one little weird addendum to this that we haven't talked about yet, and you discovered it, and I don't know how we both missed it for all of our lives until researching this film.
Oh yeah, the song. I don't know how many of you, dear listeners, follow us on the Meta platforms, but like on Instagram, uh, the algorithm favors music. So if you make a post, you kind of have to put some music onto it to get it through the algorithm, because that's how Instagram's algorithm works. So when I post the latest episode onto Instagram, I like to put a song somehow related to the movie onto the announcement to get it through the algorithm. So I was looking, okay, what songs are available for this movie that I could add on to the future post of this movie when we make the announcement. And I found that when this movie came out, the song is not in the movie, but it's on the soundtrack. It is a song called To Be or Not to Be, the Hitler Rap.
My name is Adolf. I'm on the mic. I'm going to hip you to the story of the new Third Reich. It all began down in Munich town, and pretty soon the word started getting around. So I said to Martin Bormann, I said, hey Marty, why don't we throw a little Nazi party? So we had an election, well, kind of, sort of, and before you knew it, hello, new order.
So it's Mel Brooks. The music video is Mel Brooks in the Hitler costume from that movie, rapping about the life of Adolf Hitler. The same time this song is coming out, I mean, we did also have a song about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So doing songs that tell the life and times of a famous historical figure is not novel.
I thought I kind of knew every song that Mel Brooks had ever released, and that one was new to me, and I do not know how I missed it.
It did not chart in the US. That's probably why.
Well, most of his songs did not chart in the US, and I still know them.
Yeah, I don't know how this song kind of escaped our knowledge all these years. Again, this movie in itself was a blind spot for me. And I was just looking for a song, a piece of music that might be relevant. I thought, I'd find the Polish version of Sweet Georgia Brown or the song Ladies that he sings in the movie. No, I find the Hitler rap.
And it is, I mean, it's up on YouTube. You can go look it up. But it is bizarre.
It is
even
bad.
for Mel Brooks.
It is bad.
Yeah, not one of his better ones.
Lyrically is bad. Musically is bad. It's like there's no reason for the song to be called To Be or Not to Be other than that's the name of the movie. But I guess he couldn't just call it the Hitler rap and put it out as a single, so he needed to call it something else.
Yeah, that's probably the thing.
But also, it's the early 1980s, and here's an old white guy trying to rap. It was putting, it's that era where white guy rapping was novelty music,
Well, I mean, anything Mel Brooks does is kind of novelty music, let's be honest with ourselves.
I mean, 80s novelty songs in general was just, here's a white guy trying to rap, and it's funny because white guy rapping. I would say look it up and see the music video for yourself and judge for yourself whether it's a good video or even a good song. But yeah. But the short version is To Be or Not to Be, the 1983 Mel Brooks version. It does have the magic. You should hunt it down if you can. It's on Shout TV on Amazon Prime. 7-day free trial. This is not a sponsorship. We just really want to support. We like Shout Factory and the things that they do.
Yeah.
So as for next week, getting back into more traditional Disney, we are going to be taking a look at the movie Brother Bear.
This may be a first watch for me. I cannot remember if I've ever seen this movie, to be honest.
I've often made the joke that Brave is Scottish Brother Bear. Now we're actually going to talk about Brother Bear.
Well, we will see if you're right about that, because I do not know the movie enough to know if you're correct. So
come back next week for Brother Bear, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available every Monday at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.